beauty of this teaching that was all about removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. That's what it says in the very beginning. It's what the course is for, to help you remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence in your life, and how that would redefine you as a being. And like I said, there was a time when I had made a decision early on that I would spend the first 3 years of my recovery living in Amherst and studying with Claire. And then at 3 years sober, which would be November of 1988, I would make plans to move on. And the same thing as before when I was at Opportunity House. I didn't really have a plan. It was I think, middle of November, end of November, and I still didn't really have a sense of, okay, where am I going next? And then I was talking with some AA buddies, and somebody had mentioned something like, wow, you know, you're so devoted to your recovery and all that, you might want to consider becoming a CD counselor, chemical dependency counselor. You know, there's a great program, you know, relatively new, that was developed in Center City, Minnesota, a place called Hazelden, where they had a teaching center where you would go for a year training to be certified as a chemical dependency counselor, working in other facilities, prisons, or wherever. That was kind of a new, pretty big field in therapy, was chemical dependency counseling. So suddenly that idea was like, yeah, I guess that's it. I guess that's what I'm going to do. So within a few weeks, I took a trip out to Minnesota. I made an application to the program, which was starting, I think, in February. It did a year-long thing. I think started in early February 1989. So that was that, and I wrapped up my life in Amherst and moved out with my bicycle and some books and some clothes to Center City, Minnesota. It was pretty amazing because I got there right near the end of January. Like I said, the program would start probably the second week in February. And it was the frozen tundra. I'd never been in Minnesota. I never would have ever imagined I would live in Minnesota. And here I'm living in like a converted motel that was the student housing for the counselor training program. And I remember just thinking to myself, well, here I am again, just following guidance, just taking the next best step. And it was interesting. I got involved in the program, and the woman that was in charge of the program, her name was Dorothy, and she didn't like me very much. It was pretty plain. When she found out that I actually had put up a notice at Hazelden for staff that worked at Hazelden. It's a really big complex, a big center. Anyway, I put up a notice that I was going to start a weekly group for A Course in Miracles, that was my devotion. And I remember Dorothy said to me, she says, well, you know, if you're like a student in the program here, you know, maybe it's probably not a good idea that you're also teaching, you know, something else. I don't think she understood what A Course in Miracles was. And I just said to her, Dorothy, this is my devotion. I'm devoted to the 12 steps. I'm devoted to A Course in Miracles. That's what I'm going to do. And I think she didn't like it that I didn't go, Heil Hitler, I will obey your orders and I'll stop teaching. So needless to say, at the first quarter of the program, she sat me down, did an evaluation. We had all done a MMPI, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. And she said to me, it was so cute, she says, you know, you're just a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and I just don't see it working out. So, you know, I'm going to terminate your program. So here we are now, I think May, something like that, 3 months in. And I remember walking down the main street from the center, Hazelden, the big center, to the housing place. It was a lovely spring day. And I remember just crying, like I always do, crying like, okay, I'm getting thrown out of Hazelden. I'm in the middle of Minnesota. I've got a bicycle, some books, and some clothes. What am I supposed to do?
Return to me who never left my son.
Help me.
Listen,
You're
my
running the
child.
show now.
Your
What am I
father
supposed
calls
to
to you.
do?
Do not
So
refuse
it was
to hear
really
the call of
fascinating
love.
that what
Do not
evolved
deny to Christ what
quickly,
is his own.
because I think they gave me like 10 days or 2
Heaven
weeks to
is here,
move out.
and heaven
So I remember presenting my
is your
dilemma to
home.
my Course in Miracles group.
Creation
And
leans
one of the
across the
members of that
bars of
group was a
time
woman who was
to lift the heavy burden from the world.
acquisition editor
Lift
for
up your
Hazelden. They
hearts
have a big
to
publisher.
greet its advent.
And I
See
had
the
shared with
shadows
her
fade
my
away
interest
in
in writing a
gentleness.
booklet series
The thorns fall
integrating
softly from
the
the
12
bleeding
steps in
brow
Course in
of him
Miracles.
who is the
And so
Holy
this woman,
Son
she
of
said to
God.
me, you know, Louis,
How lovely are you, child of holiness.
I'm going to pitch your idea. I
How
think
like
it's a
to
good
me.
idea. I think they'll want to publish this.
How
I think
lovingly I
sign a
hold you
contract
in
with
my
you
heart and in my arms.
You'll make enough money to
How dear
at
is
least
every
continue
gift to me that you have made,
living,
who
get
healed
an
my
apartment
son
somewhere
and took him from the
live
cross.
in the area. And I remember thinking like,
Rise.
okay. So
And let my
she
thanks be
presented it,
given
they
you.
accepted the idea. I think
And
I
with
got a
my
little bit of a
gratitude
cash advance.
will come the
I
gift.
rented an
First,
apartment in a house in St. Croix
forgiveness.
Falls, Wisconsin, just over
Then
the border. So I think
eternal
on my bicycle it was
peace.
probably about an hour bike ride from Hazelden.
So now return your holy voice
Anyway,
to
so I was
me.
going to be set up enough
The
money to
song
pay
of
my
prayer
rent and start
is
writing
silent
this,
without you.
I think, a 12 booklet
The
series.
universe is
one of
waiting your
each of the
release
12 steps
because
integrating
it
and
is
teaching
its
Course in
own.
Miracles. And,
Be
and I
kind
was
to it and to yourself,
pretty excited because
and then be
I
kind
think
to
that's
me.
something that I was really called to do.
I
At the
ask
time,
but
I
this,
was already, I think, a
that you be
pretty accomplished
comforted
writer.
and live no
I'd been
more
writing a
in
lot of
terror and in pain.
articles for
Do not abandon
magazines,
love.
and papers, and spiritually minded
Remember this.
publications, whatever.
Whatever you
And
may
here I
think
was now
about
going to publish
yourself,
a book, in a booklet form, but it was
whatever
a
you
book.
may think about the world,
Hazelden, they eventually became Hazelden
your
Harper,
Father needs
a
you
big publishing company.
and will call to you
So,
until you come to Him.
interesting that
in peace
so here was set up. It was
at last.
in July, early July. It was 4th of July. 4th of July, I get a phone call from my mom, and she's crying, and she tells me that my younger sister Lynn had committed suicide. She hung herself, but they had cut her down before she was fully dead. So she was in a coma. And so the implication was she would like it if I came back to spend some time supporting her. Who knew how long Lynn would be in a coma. And it was interesting when she was telling me this and crying, and this voice, the voice, whispers in my ear, pay attention. Like this whole scene is going to be more remarkable than you can imagine. And it was pretty amazing. I'll try to wrap this up. I'll probably have to do this in two sections. My life devotion with the Course in Miracles, but this was a very significant step for me in my relationship with the voice, the Holy Spirit. Now you would call it, saying, "Pay attention." First thing that happens is I'm on the phone shortly after with my sister who lives in Seattle. She's a professor. And so we're talking about her flying through Minneapolis, and we fly together to go back and help my mom and my other sister. All of us would be together as a family to support Lynn in her coma. My sister says to me, "Would you please consider not coming home?" And she goes on to explain to me how she's always felt as the middle child left out. I've always been mom's favorite. I've always been the one that was there to sort of be a counselor, supporter of mom. And, if you come back also, I'll just be again invisible. I won't have any sense of purpose. So I said to her, because the voice had said, "Pay attention. My sister's asking me not to come home. Stay in Wisconsin while we sit in vigil with Lynn." So I'm like, okay. So I agree to do that. Later explained to my mom, Jody's asking, whatever, I can be of support here. We can talk on the phone. blah, blah, blah. So here I am in Center City, or not Center City, in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin, with my bicycle. And I remember I would ride my bicycle every day, and I would cry and I would cry and I would cry. Now thinking about my sister Lynn, we had always been best friends, and here she is in so much anguish in her angry coma with her hands clenched, angry look on her face. I mean, it was getting the description from my mom. And every day I just would sort of like be riding my bicycle and praying, like, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? And then about 5 days into this process, I think, voice very clearly wakes me up in the middle of the night saying, write her a letter. Okay. So I sit down at my typewriter and I write a letter to my little sister, just basically taking dictation. The voice was telling me, just give her the blessing. She needs the blessing. She needs to know that it's okay to be free. All right. And I remember saying, you could decide to come back and heal and have a happy life, or you can be free. You don't need to carry the burden for the family any longer. It's kind of like we had this really shitty family, and being the youngest, the fourth, everything kind of, all the worst stuff ended up on her. So she had a horrible life. She'd been involved herself. I mean, she'd taken me to my halfway house, or no, she took me to my, when I went into treatment. And 10 days later, she signed herself into the treatment center. She was in and out of treatment centers all the time. So again, I remember for me, this whole idea of pay attention. Lynn's process is for you also. Okay, it's a deep incentive for me to get it, to heal, to change, to grow. Like, we have a choice: get out or make things better. She's going to get out. So anyway, I wrote the letter saying, you're free. I love you so much. Just be free, be happy. And it was a beautiful thing. I think 2 days later, after the letter arrived, my eldest sister, she wanted to have her role. So she wanted to read the letter aloud to Lynn. They read the letter to Lynn, my letter, and her hands open, and they see this like stigmata from her fingernails. It was just this amazing thing, like stigmata in her palms. And she stopped, relaxed her face, made a little smile. They pulled the life support, and she was gone. It was an amazing thing later when my mom's telling me how beautiful it was. It was just like this really precious moment. And for me, I immediately said to my mom, I need to give Lynn's eulogy at her memorial service. And my mom said, of course. And that would cause a rift. I've never had a good relationship with either of my sisters since that time. I think that was kind of like the icing on the cake, that I could stand up and have this moment that was amazing. And I'm going to save that for the next segment, because it's its own great story, I think. But this was the turning point for me. Here I am, just a little bit over 3 years sober, and my sister commits suicide, and it's like, okay, now more than ever, I am so motivated to make my life, really our life, doing this for my sister Lynn as well. And I'll remember, because there's a great story, not only her memorial service, but the Easter Sunday, the year following. I'm going to save that for the next section. Okay, well, thank you for listening again. This is great for me to be able to share, because these stories are not stories that I've had a chance to really bring together in this integrated fashion and share with my world. So thank you for being there to receive it. I love you.